Hello, we are now doing Daf Memtes, share for Daf Memtes of Parshas Bechukosai, and starting with the second sif of the Maimer Elech Chukim. Now, the whole concept of brachos, blessings in the Torah, is by way of analogy, as it says in the pasuk in Parshas Bechukosai, "V'achaltem lachmechem l'seiva." You shall eat your bread to satiate. The explanation is that you should have this level of seivas machas penicha, as we say in Tehillim, complete satiation and joy, as it is also written, "Ois v'chadva ben koimei." And the curses, the klalos, conceal and prevent a person from serving Hashem, which Jewish people are all of b'machshava she'ein sham shum heser panim ritzon l'davka b'yichud yisbarich man minim b'nei maminim, that the Jewish people rose in Hashem's thought and are believers, sons of believers. Therefore, really, the Jewish people are not shaykh to the idea of a curse, chas v'shalom. From their essence. And lasud lavo, really, any klalos will transform to brachos. So the whole purpose of klalos then are to remove this external spirit of impurity that cleaves to the neshamas of the Jewish people and gets mixed in with the holiness of the neshama. This is why it says in the pasuk in Pashat Tzavim, Nisan Hashem, "Eis kol ha'alay sa'ila al ivecha v'alsayin echa asher yitהפכו," and as it is written specifically that all these curses are specifically on your enemies. It's also written in Parshas Achrei, "V'nasa ha'sa'ir alav es kol ha'vaynaisam," in Parshas Achrei Mais, that specifically the goat carries the burden of all the avoidance of the Jewish people, to separate the avoidance from the neshamas of the Jewish people, which is this level of Esav within the Yid, Ish Sire, and it's brought down in Parshas Toldos. This is the explanation of this whole concept of klalos, of curses, which really they're brachos from their essence. The whole idea is that the klala is that it says in the Mishnah Torah, in the last sefer of the Chumash, in Parshas Kisavei, Hager asher b'ker b'cha, etc. That it's only the חיצוניus, that cleaves to the neshamas of the Jewish people, that has this aspect of klala. And so the explanation is that the pasuk, Hager b'sher b'ker b'cha, the stranger that is amongst you, this is the Shekhinah, that from it comes the hidden love which is in the heart of every Jewish person, that is this level of exile within the body. This is called a ger, which is in, so to speak, is in a foreign land. It's this spark of godliness that animates and enlivens this person's soul. As our sages say, that when we were exiled, the Jewish people were exiled, the Shekhinah was exiled with them. And then it says in Parshas Kisavei, Ya'ala Alecha Maila Maila, that as the blessings that will ascend higher and higher, that will have this level, this essential and ultimate massive elevation that will recognize the depths of our thought, the greatness of Hashem, which is completely unlimited. It's written in Parshas Yisrael and Yavaya, etc. etc. The explanation is that we shouldn't have anymore this level of constriction and limitation, but rather we should have this concept of, as is brought down in Tehillim, this halcha varchava, that we will go in with harchav, with vastness and abundance. Then, as the pasuk of Yala Lechem Elamayla v'ata tered matamata, that means that you, ata, that's the level of the body and external aspects of the person, that should descend low, down very low. And that is the whole idea of the klalas, that the curse is not on the essence of the Jew, the curse is on the external elements of the Jew that prevents the Jew from serving Hashem, to separate the Jew from these negative things. This we can understand the whole concept of Yitzchak Avinu olav shalom, that he wanted to bless Esav and not Yaakov. That's the brachas and all the mitzvahs of the Teda, which are the hamshacha and the revelation of Hashem's godliness down here below. This is only to push away the Sitra Achra and to subjugate it to holiness. And therefore, the Torah is given only after we left Mitzrayim. And that's not the case in the times of our forefathers, because our avos, they're called the Merkava, chariot, divine chariot. And they're totally nullified Hashem's unity. And they do not need this hamshacha and this revelation down here. Therefore, Yitzchak didn't want to bless Yaakov because he was on the level of Merkava, he was on such a high level, but he knew that Esav had a special opportunity within him, that if he would bless Esav, then he can transform him and bring him close to Kedusha. And therefore, he said in his bracha that Esav stands before, that specifically he wanted Esav standing before him. It's in the pasuk ve'yiten l'cha Elokim. This is part of the bracha he gives. Mital shemaim nishmani eretz v'reiv dagan v'sidaish. Hashem should give you from the dew of the heaven, from the fat of the earth, and the reiv dagan v'sidaish, and grain and wine. Only good things. So the Alter Rebbe explains. Tal Shamayim represents Torah Shebechsav, it's written Torah. Shmanei Aretz, that represents the Torah Shebal-Pav. Reiv Dagan, this represents the halachas of the Torah, which are very many halachas. We have infinite, multitudinous amounts of halachas. It's written in the pasuk in Parshas Miketz v'yitzbar Yosef bar harbe ma'od ag pi chodal lispar, that the storage houses of grain that Yosef Tzaddik kept in Mitzrayim was so infinitely large amounts that he wasn't even able to count, as about on the pasuk in Shir Shirim. Similarly, in Shir Shirim it's written Allah Meis in Mispar. Sages explain Allah Meis, that represents that means halachis. So Tiresh, this Tirish is wine, and that actually represents the secrets of the Torah, as it says that in the Gemara, Nichnas yain yatsa soid. When wine comes in, the secret comes out, and that's why Yitzchak Avinu wanted to bless Esav specifically in order to transform and push away the Sitra Achra that's within Esav and to transform him. But in truth, it wasn't possible to subjugate him to Kedusha because he was completely wicked. And the only way to actually correct the blemish within Esav was to remove the Sitrach and the negativity completely and to cut off with all the claws. So that's why the brachas weren't given b'poel mamish to Esav, but rather to Yaakov. The idea was to subjugate the sitra achra that was an subject that was mixed in his seed, in the seed of Yaakov, as is written base arvo. So I guess there's elements of Esav within the sense of Yaakov that needs to be subjugated and refined. And as it is written in the pasuk in Parshas Teildos, "Ve'esav achiv ba mitzedoi," that Esav, his brother, came from his side, so to speak. So our sages say, don't read mitzedoi, al tikei mitzedoi, ela mitzedoi. Besides, so that when a person stands in davening and wants to cleave to Hashem, and he has many machshavas zaras that he doesn't want to have, and those really are coming mitzidai, from his side, like they're like the Esav that's kind of hanging on to him. So that's so. However, nevertheless, these machshavas are not willing, so therefore they're called mitzidoi, which are not the idea of acharayim, which is something that you're forced on completely. It's not something that he doesn't desire at all. It's not the level of panim either, which is complete willingness. But when he has these extraneous thoughts during davening, because he wants to cleave to Hashem, and when a Jew davens, wants to cleave to Hashem, consequently, it just happens that these extraneous thoughts kind of are drawn after him, after the Jew that wants to daven. Just like the mashal, the person that wears a very long garment. And unfortunately, if you're wearing a very beautiful long garment, unfortunately, sometimes it just happens that some of it will drag into the mud. And if he wants to, climb a ladder, it will get kind of dirty with the all the dirt that collected in his garment will ascend with him. So it's kind of like the ladder, climbing a ladder is, like davening, because it says that the davening is like climbing a spiritual ladder. So unfortunately, the neshama is going to have some shmutz on it that's going to just unfortunately just come derech memela when they're davening. And so in order to suppress this evil within the neshama, which is this level of Esav, so what do we do? Well, Yitzchak Avinu said that kumna shva, he said, meaning that it's impossible to draw down the brachos, which is a revelation of godliness, as long as this wickedness is still so strong within the person. It says in the pasuk in Tehillim, le'gur chara, you can't have the wickedness so strong. So how do we get this out? Kumna, specifically, we have to get up, so to speak. So just like it says in when the Jews left Egypt in the Shir Sayam, ki gai ga, we say. So what does it mean? Targum translates it as are is gai, I'll give sanaya. So this means that one must elevate oneself and distance oneself from these negative influences. So that way the neshama doesn't have any unika from these negative forces. And similarly, by us practically in our Avodas Hashem, that one must meditate and really think and meditate on the greatness of Hashem, how Hashem fills the whole world and encompasses the whole world. Mamala and Seviv, recognize that everything is as if it's nothing before Hashem. And Hashem is completely infinite. And then we won't have any uniqueness of חיצונים so much. So, and consequently, anything that's preventing us from serving Hashem will completely fall away. And these are these wicked attributes, these midas rais and machshav zaros that the Jew has, because the Jewish people, we ascended, so to speak, in Hashem's thought. Specifically, Hashem thought us into existence, so to speak. So that means that since we want to, I guess, live our lives as close as possible and in the image of Hashem, so too we should really activate our koyach machshava, this power of thought, to really meditate on the grace of Hashem. And that's why the pasuk in the bracha of Yitzchak says kumna shiva. So what does this mean, shiva? That the Jewish people, in their own right, specifically through this yeshiva process, meaning through descending and drawing down this revelation down here below to make a deal with Tachtonim, that's really the ultimate purpose. As it says in Tehillim, V'yeshev Hashem melech la'olam, that just like a person sits down, he, so to speak, he, I guess, settles himself to an extent that he feels at home and settled. So that's just like we want Hashem to feel that same way, Baruchnias, in this physical world. And pasuk continues, Achla mitzedi. So this means that every speech and action in Torah mitzvahs has this element of trapping, this hunted game, so to speak, meaning that our avodas Hashem is that we are trapping sparks in that sparks of holiness that are hidden within the body and vivifying soul that is within us and transforming it to holiness. And this idea of eating, specifically through eating, is how the Jewish people are, so to speak, get their sustenance from their Father in heaven. And pasuk continues, Bavur tivarchani nafshecha. This is the level of pnimius, the inner chayas of all the worlds that are drawn down from the ultimate life source of the Ein Sof, Baruch Hu, which is enclosed and concealed in them in order to vivify and animate the soul that is completely concealed in the body. And this bracha, this blessing, is able to leave its concealment and manifest itself in a revealed way within the intellect, in order so that way the glory of Hashem will be revealed and the unity of the Jewish people the unity of Hashem will be manifest within the intellect and thoughts of the Jewish people, specifically here in this physical world, and in the future time to come, will have this blessing and hamshacha in this world in a complete revealed sense down here below. And this is why it is written in the pasuk, Elah hachukim v'mishpatim v'toiros. We're not answering the question that we asked at the beginning of the mimer. Why does the pasuk allude to the blessings and curses as laws, so to speak, even though they're really blessings and curses? Because this is the revelation of godliness down here below. And the whole purpose of the brachos and the klalos is to remove and nullify any negativity that prevents the Jewish people from doing their avodas Hashem, which it happens specifically through the mitzvahs, the positive mitzvahs, the negative mitzvahs, and specifically that they are between Hashem and the Jewish people. What does that mean? Because the klalos are essentially an intermediary, so to speak, that unfortunately separates the Jewish people from Hashem. And that's why the pasuk has to use the lashon beinoi vein b'nei Yisrael. Because when a Jew does not do exact Ratzon Hashem and transgresses Ratzon Hashem, that there ends up being this, so to speak, this partition between Hashem and the Jewish people. And that's what the klalos are supposed to really accomplish, is to help remove that. And therefore, we need to rectify ourselves through doing the mitzvahs properly, and specifically the negative mitzvahs, the 365 negative mitzvahs, which guards the person from חיצונים, that there shouldn't be any uniqueness of חיצונים, and there shouldn't be any separation between us and Hashem. And that's why it's written Beinoi vein b'nei Yisrael and not el b'nei Yisrael, to show that we have this job to really remove this thing that's separating us, and that's only through observing all the chukim, mishpatim, and toros. So that's the end of the Elah chukim mimer. So now moving on Daf Mem Tas Amud Beis to the next mimer, very powerful mimer. Says, brought down in the Gemara that it is asur for a person to taste anything, any food, until he first feeds his animal. It says in the pasuk, "V'nasati esav v'sadach levimtecha," pasuk in the second paragraph of Krishma, and only then later it says "v'achalta" in the Krishma. So that from that we come to learn out that we have to really feed our animals first. So this halacha has a deeper pnimius inyanim that we're going to explain. First, the korbanos. The whole concept of korbanos is to elevate the animal within on the mizbeach, in order that we should see, so to speak, the supernal aryeh, that we should supernal lion that eats these korbanos, so to speak, spiritual Merkava, Eliana, that expression of Hashem. So anyways, in order that this animal, this behemoth, is able to be part of this Eishel Maila, this supernal fire, we first need to have this reach nichoach, pleasing. We have to have this pleasing fragrance, and we need to have this hamshacha and illumination from above to below, and to give koyach and strength to elevate and transform this behema from a very Gushan Deka entity to Rachnis. And this is the idea of feeding the animal on a spiritual level. Is offering the karbanis. And this means Asev, this the idea of feeding the grass, supernal grass, the idea of giving the behema the food to strengthen it so that it's able to ascend, just like a person is strengthened through food. And this is what it means that that will give grass for in your field for your animal, that we're able to elevate the behema l'mayla. And so, what does this mean in avodas adam? It means the idea is psuka de zimra. Psuka de zimra, we have this pilus of the nefesh elokis, which the godly soul is on this level of behemoth, it's in this animal state before you daven. And then, just like the Merkava Al-Yaina of Pnei Aryeh and Pnei Shor, it's, so to speak, on the spiritual level behemoth. That's our godly soul. And this is written in the Pasuk in Shmuel that Vayisharna Haparais Halech V'Ga'ai, the idea of this bindiness of meditating, the praise of Hashem and the love of Mamalakalmin specifically, that just like in its source, we're so to speak taking from the dregs of the Shmari Hafanim of these angels, this element from these angels, and we have this hispilus, this of the angels that are called chayus behemoths. They are, so to speak, have this animalistic energy to it. This is what's happening lamaila, and this is all in the way of memali calming. And so the whole idea of Psukkah de Zimra is the idea of when we sing, we reach this inyan of Ashir Lashem Ki Gaiga by the Shir Sayam. And when the person is singing, so to speak, to Hashem, the Nefesh Abamis has a special koyach to be included, so to speak, in this supernal fire, that through this burning supernal fire of the burning passion of the godly soul, the nefesh elokis is able to help burn up, so to speak, spiritually, the nefesh abamis. And that is through the grass, so to speak, the asev, that we give to the nefesh abamis, meaning that we draw down and illuminate this godliness in a way of Mamalei Kalmin, that through the Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul, meditating and praising Hashem. And so this is what it means. It's forbidden for a person to taste, specifically Yitoim. To have tasting is a uniquely human quality. We don't see a concept of animals tasting something, just the mere idea of just tasting. They eat. So that would be Michael Adam. That's the way of humans eat. But Michael Behema. First, you have to feed your animal, which is the idea of Psukkah de Zimra. And through this, we get the strength for the animal soul to be included and cleave to Hashem's essence. And then afterwards, we feed the at the godly soul, so to speak, which is the idea of tasting, specifically through Kriyashma and tefillah and davening, by giving over one's soul to the unity of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, and not an idea of completely giving oneself over and to the oneness and light of Hashem, which is so lofty. It's called the level of Adam, of man, just like we say that Hashem is Adamel, or that mankind is Adamel Elyon. So since we are similar to Hashem, we, on a human level, are able to connect to Hashem, this higher level, during Krishma and Tefillah and davening, and through the Shemona Esrei. And this is what it means that v'chalta v'savata. That's why it says later on, v'chalta v'savata, in the Krishma. And that's how we learn this halacha of feeding the animal first, because of the whole idea of first feeding the behima, zimra, and then feeding the adam, the human element, which is through Kriyashma, as Pasuk and Shir Shirim actually breaks down the two elements of Kriyashma and Krishma. That says achalti ya'arim divshi. So ya'ari alludes to the brach of Yetzer Ar, which talks about the hispilus of the angels, of the malachim. And divshi, that alludes to the Krishma itself. Now, skipping the parentheses discuss how this is connected to the korban of the Sfiras Omer, of korban, the korban of the Omer that's brought before Shavuos, which is specifically made of barley, which is an animal food, and how this is all connected to the we're discussing. And after parentheses, we're now discussing how the Torah is called oiz, strength. It's also called tushia. And why is it called tushia? The Torah is called tushia because it, so to speak, is mateshes koach shel adam, so to speak, weakens the koach of man. So what does this mean? That just like by the Karbanis, it's written in Parshas Pinchas, lachmi leishai. The korban should be lachmi leishai, as a burnt for fire offering for Hashem. That meaning but the word lachmi alludes to the fact that the Torah is called lachem, bread, as we bring down lachu lachmu b'lachmi in Mishlei. Just like food strengthens the koyach of a person, the power of a person, so too the Torah gives koyach for the godly soul, which is called adam, a person, human. And this is called Meicha Adam, food for human food, because through learning halacha, one's godly soul is able to become strengthened in order that it should be able to give its soul over to the oneness of Hashem through Kriyashma, and we're able to reach this higher level of Ichlu Reim. And this is what our sages say, that for every dibur and dubur, the shamas, send and return into this, this dew of life, tal tachia. So is this idea that in the Targum Yonasan and Tehillim, it explains that this on the pasuk Geshem Nidaves Tanif, Gemara and Shabbos, it says that Tal Torah is this idea that that the soul ascends and blossoms, specifically through Mesiras Nefesh and returning the body, turning one's body through the talp of Torah, through the dew of Torah, so to speak, which is the idea of shuv. So it's the idea of Ratzav Shuv. Because the koyach, power and strength for their soul was given in order to strengthen and return their soul back into their bodies in order to, I guess, revive the soul, specifically through food, through the food they eat. And the parentheses explains that the words Ratzav Shuv is actually the gematria of the word Torah. So specifically through this idea of Ratzo, which is the idea of Parchan Nishmasen, of, I guess, the soul ascending, so to speak, and then returning back, which is the idea of Shuv. That is what makes it possible to receive the Torah, which the whole concept of the Torah is this avodah of Ratzo Shuv. That's why the Torah is called Tushia, salvation, because it is known that everything that is needed to elevate above is connected down here below. That it's impossible to elevate itself without first untying this, so to speak, this knot that keeps one tied down below. And then one is able to ascend, etc. Similarly, because the Taitos gives koyach, gives power and strength to elevate, there is this koyach, this power also to untie this knot, so to speak, that connects the animal soul to the physicality of this world, and to lahatish, so the idea of tushia, to weaken, so to speak, this power of this that connects the nefesh bamis, the animal, the physicality of the soul, that to make it weaker, to weaken the animalistic and physical aspects of the body and soul, that it should be able to elevate the godly soul and the kus within the soul. And so basically, so when we say tushia, the idea is that it weakens the power of the nefesh bamis. And this is the inyan that we give strength to our soul to elevate, because we remove this knot, so to speak, that's tying down our godly soul, and then we are able to elevate to higher spiritual levels. And this is the difference between grass, which is an animal food, and human food. Because grass just grows on its own, because of the koyach hatzameach, this power, the power of vegetation that's within the ground. But human food doesn't just happen randomly. If you just let things grow wild, you're not really going to properly grow human food. The only way to get human food is through planting, specifically through this process of zeria, through planting specific produce. Then, specifically like wheat, planting the wheat, then it will sprout. So that's the mashal. What is the nimshal? What is the analog here? That the angels are called grass of the field, Isav Asadeh, in the Zohar. And that is the idea of animal food, angels, which is Ban, Malchus of Atzilos, which comes and sprouts from the power of Malchus itself, which is called Eretz, which is called land. Without any, because it's animal food that doesn't require any zriya, any planting, any spiritual planting. Now, tavua, actual produce, which is human food, that needs to be planted. So spiritually, this represents the neshamais, which is called reshis tuvasai. That's called adam, human food, food for humans. That is specifically needs to have this idea of planting, which is drawing down this level of yachid chei ha'olamim, into this level of Hashem's Malchus. And this is the food of not only physical man, but in the analog, it's Adam Ha'elyon, supernal man, so to speak. And this is specifically through the mysterious nefesh of neshamas in Kriya Shema, in the oneness that ascends to be included in the body of the king, so to speak. After the parentheses, we actually find that after we feed our behema baruchnias, we feed the adam baruchnias, then we have a circular pattern for the next day that the Kriya Shema, the Mesiras Nefesh that we have in Kriya Shema, actually gives the koach, the power for the yid to be able to feed their behema baruchnias the next day in Pesukei de Zimra, and so for the whole process to repeat itself the next day. Now moving on to Sif Beis. We know that there is another difference between planting and of Eretz Chita, of wheat, grapes. So it's written, Vanechi netaitich soireik, that planting produce like a seed of wheat, it'll sprout from it. Even though it's such a small seed, it will sprout with much abundance, much greater than the seed itself. And we don't have to wait that long from the planting of the seed of the wheat kernel until it actually sprouts. However, it does need the 39 malachas that need to be done to plow it, and then to do all these halachas or malachas before Shabbos to thresh it, to grind it, to select it, winnow, and then bake it, and then cook it until it becomes ready to eat. So that's zariya. Now natiyah is different. Natiyah is the idea of planting a seed. For example, an apple seed. When one plants an apple seed, it doesn't sprout right away, but the tree grows over time. And the idea is that when you plant an apple tree, you have to wait 3 full years in order to even begin to benefit from the tree. And there's even other trees like a tamar, a date tree, that you have to wait 70 years in order to actually reap the produce of it. As it is written, Tzadik hatamar yifrach, that a tzaddik will blossom like a date tree. And however, one doesn't need, so the benefit though, on the flip side, when you plant a date tree, you don't need to do all those 39 malachas in order to get the fruit to be able to benefit from the fruit. You're able to just pluck it off the tree and consume it right away. And you actually, also the other benefit is you get direct pleasure from the sweetness of the fruit, as opposed to the wheat that you planted. You get, I guess, sustenance from the bread, but you don't get that sweetness. So it's a very, two very different types of planting. There's many more differences as well. So that's the mashal. So what's the nimshal? The analog is that all of these things can be understood spiritually, lamaila, that the godly soul is, so to speak, planted in the way of zriya, like or zarua latzadik. Zriya is like the idea of wheat. And we have in the Shama that is the idea of like a tevua, of like produce, for example, called Reshis Tevuas, that by way of analogy, that a tevua produce that was nizra with a seed, like a wheat seed, it will, grow in multitudinous ways. However, it won't have any shinoi hamahus. It won't change, the essence won't change like the sprouting of an apple tree. Meaning that the neshama is in Gan Eden, the tachtoin, which are beriboy and agdala, that we have this addition of godly light that is within them, which is this idea of riboy alone. And we also have even loftier souls that derive pleasure from Shem Havaya with this great sweetness. These are souls that are like apples, like it's written in Shir Shirim, Radfuni Batapuchin. The whole idea is that their mahus, their essence, is completely changed when they, become elevated, and compared to how they were when they were, so to speak, planted from their Orzarulat Tzadik, like the advantage of an apple over the seed that was planted. This is also the difference between the elevation by way of Ishtalshlus, cause and effect, and the elevation doesn't occur, there's Seder Ishtalshlus. And this is called the level of Chakal Tapuchim Kadishin. It's a holy apple orchard. Like we say in Shir Shirim, Ketapuach, Batsei Yar, King Doidi, is the idea of Yar Shem Panav Lecha. Now, one should look in Pardes that explains that the apple field, apple orchard, is the level of Tiferes, and explains the whole inyan of Tiferes in Parshas Kedoshim in the discourse over there. You can look over there. Now, through this, we can say that this whole concept of Sdei Halavan and Sdei Ilan, that is in the Mishnah, in the tractate of Shavias, that this represents Gan Eden Tachton, Gan Eden Elyon. It's Gan Eden Tachton, its sources from Malchus, and Gan Eden Elyon, its sources from Bina. However, must understand that the whole idea of Gan, garden, is the Natias, plantings, as it is written, Vayita Hashem Elokim Gan, in Bereshis, in the garden, with regards to the Garden of Eden. And the nimshal, how can we say that the nimshal is only regards to tzmichas etvua, we can say that, like our sages say, that the Eitz Hadas Tevara was specifically a wheat. Tree of knowledge of good and evil was a wheat berries that they picked. So the main idea is that also in Gan Eden Tachtein, there's neshamas that receive from the level of nitias of planting, and there are those neshamas that are idea of tivua, of produce specifically. So, however, there is a great amount of time that needs to be waited until we say tzadik katam yifrach, meaning to say that from planting and above until you finish the process, which is represented by this idea of godly revelation of this holy, pleasurable, divine light. You're waiting 70 years, which is the example of this is that which we see in the godly soul down here below, that one derives pleasure in godliness. In order to derive the proper pleasure in godliness, one must wait a great amount of time, at least a full year or more. And also, it is sprouted from the beginning of the tree, meaning to say that the Bereisha Ilan means from Chachma, because Chachma is the beginning of the spheres within the soul, which is that which is written in Parashat Shoftim, Ki Adam Itasoda. The man is the tree of the fields, which he gives its fruit, Lamaila Dafka, because the Einig is only in Chachma. However, this is the advantage that one does not need to this tikkun through ahava and yira, which is ahava and yira is alluded to baking and cooking, just like the food of the produce and the shamas that are lower. It's impossible for them to become digested and to eat the food, this supernal food, human food, unless it is first baked properly, meaning to say to this proper hislavus in Avodas Hashem. And similarly, it's written in Parashat Bechukosai va'asu eser nashim, the 10 women bake from this board of the klalas, that the 10 women bake in this oven, which represents the 10 spheres of Malchus. And specifically, their bread that they break, that represents the Or Zarua in one oven, represents this idea of unifying this achdus, supernal achdus, meaning to say that it becomes digestible after baking and becomes included in the oneness of Hashem, just like the analogy of one who of food that does not become digested by a person, but only through baking first. And all this is understood, and that which our sages say that says Sida Eretz Yisrael shetoitzi gluskais uchli milas, etc. So this means that Haaretz, the land, is this level of Malchus of Atzilus, which is the source in the Shamos and Malachim, the angels. This toitzi, that it comes out from itself without the avoda of Or Zarua Latzadik, because it becomes elevated, and then Malchut, and then the Malchut can become a Teres Baila, can become elevated to Keser. And the gluskais, this is like the bread that is baked in the oven. Similarly, that which through the working on these 39 prohibited labor, these 39 labor forms of labor of malachas of the Or Zarua, of this planting of light of the neshama is included in the oneness in this world. However, the neshama completes its baking and cooking process, spiritual baking and cooking, and therefore all these lofty lights will be revealed in Malchus specifically, who need to be elevated to Keser. It'll come all and receive from all of it, as is written in Zechariah, this water of life will come out from Yerushalayim. And one should look in the Shalah, in Parshat Vayetze, Pasuk that explains this in the context of the bracha Hamaitzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Now, which is written Likkutei Torah, specifically it says Likkutei. This comes to allude to the general hishtalshlus of the lights of the internal and makif, the galites, the iris, the pneumius lights, the iris, the pneumium are the gluskais, and the makifim are the chlei milas. This is the idea of the lavushim, makifim, and mitzvahs. And similarly, it is written in the Rabbi Shir Shirim, in the pasuk Gan No'ol, locked garden, that on this pasuk, and on the pasuk in Yechezkel, V'chas Seich Meshi, as it's done literally in the world, etc. So how is this done? Ma da'at amer layamish amuna anan. Look over there. So the whole inyan is that in the Torah it is written l'chu lachmu b'lachmi mishle, that this is the level of our pnimi. And the mitzvahs, with regards to the mitzvahs, we say asher kidshanu, which is the idea of kiddushin, which is the level of our makif. And the proof to this is that one person is able to do a mitzvah by wrapping oneself in a talis, and it can not, which is a very makif-dika mitzvah, but it doesn't reach their hearts at all in a pneumistic way until he first has to think with his, and he could, to such an extent that one could be completely wrapped in the talis and have machshav zaris, and it doesn't, the makif-dika energy doesn't reach his pneumius. But with regards to Matan Torah was called Yom Chasunase, it was called the wedding day, that through every speech, the neshama left a goof, which is the level of our pnimi, because it was completely willing. And therefore, after this Parcha Nishmasan, this Ratzai, level of Ratzai in the Dibur Rishon, we have a question. Why did we need the second Dibur of the Seres Dibris? So, in the Kiddushin that was before it, that they sent them to Moshe, and they enacted this covenant with them, with the blood. They said, Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh nishma. They said, I will do, and then we will listen. This is the level of makif. However, makif gives the power and strength in order to achieve the second level, is the pnimi. That which they enacted this covenant was the reason that made it possible to have this Mesiras Nefesh and Matan Torah. However, the main marriage was in Matan Torah, because they had this idea of Parcha Nishmasan in the most literal sense, and that's not the case with this, with this concealed makif deka light and connection. And similarly, it is mentioned in Idra that Hanetz lasa di istalku deviru sagi visakif istavaku nafshisehen beshaita de isnesivu. And from this, we can understand that which this wonder is a very repella. That when we say in the second paragraph, Krishma V'Hayim Shemaya, that Moshe said, and how can it be that it says V'Sati Matar V'Sati Isa? I'll give rain and I'll give grass. Almost implies seemingly Chas v'Shalom that Moshe is the one that's giving the rain and giving the grass, but it's not a Moshe, it's Hashem. So what's going on? Now this is just like the Mefarshim asked the question that after in the Mishnah Torah in Dvarim, Sefer Dvarim, Moshe is speaking himself. Is speaking almost like as if he himself is giving the Torah. If that's the case, it should have said V'nasan Hashem matar. That meaning Hashem gives the rain, gave the rain. So why is it making it seem like Moshe is giving the rain? Even though it's really coming from Hashem. So the inyan is that because the Shekhinah speaks within the throat of Moshe, and the spirit of Hashem is speaking within Moshe, then when he's saying V'Sati Esav, he's completely nullified to Hashem. So it's not that Moshe is giving the grain, giving the rain, Chas v'Shalom, but rather that through Mantara, which is this idea of marriage, Nisuin, that Moshe had this ultimate bittul, ultimate nullification to Hashem, that he was just a pipeline and a channel to draw down and to transmit the essence of Hashem to such an extent that their souls were able to be completely nullified and one with Hashem. And this is how Moshe was always. That it is written, Parshas V'Eschanan, Lech Amar Lahem Shuvu Lachem Le'Elokechem Ata Poi Amoid Imadi, that he did not take up any actual space at all. Therefore, he was able to say V'Nasati, that I will give, because the words of Hashem, he spoke the words of Hashem. And it was literally when Moshe spoke, it was literally Hashem speaking through him. And this is the idea of Hashoina halachais that our sages say. The one learns and says over halachais, that our sages say masnisa malkus. That means that, by way of analogy, just like a king that decrees, says through his shliach, when that person through an emissary is literally like the person himself. So we say, for example, Amar Abaye, etc., that the decree of the king, Kadosh Baruch Hu, is Dina de Malchusa. So Abaye says that the spirit of Hashem is speaking within the din of the Malchus. As it is written, Vasim Devar Beficho, that I will place my word in your mouth, the words of Hashem in your mouth. However, this is only after having this Mesiras Nefesh of this level of Nisuin, Baruchnius, end of Maimer. Yeshua Koach. Have a wonderful day.